Engage Cuba is a national coalition of private sector companies, trade associations, and human rights and civil society groups, including Cuban American organizations who are working, as our name says, to engage with Cuba, so to expand travel and trade and cooperation between the countries for the betterment of the United States and for the Cuban people. And so we have an advocacy and lobbying operation based in Washington, D.C. We also have an office in Miami, so we work very closely with the Cuban American community and other leaders down there who are, very close to the island, as well as doing lots of delegations and trips to the island itself. We have a few different issues that we're working on all at the same time. And so, one is obviously with Congress, where we continue to work on legislation to fully lift the travel ban on Cuba. So there's unrestricted tourist travel to Cuba. We think it's the best thing. We should for both exposing Cuba to Americans and our ideals and way of life, and be able to have an open, frank relationship between the countries. We're also working on expanding trade. And so there are bills both to expand agricultural trade as well as other broader trade issues such as manufacturing, energy, and other forms of investment. The reason why I wanted to found Engage Cuba in the first place is because I really am frustrated with this debate on U.S.-Cuba relations and helping the Cuban people being dominated by the far left and the far right. You have sort of like solidarity groups with the government. Everything they do is great. There's no criticism. And then these fringe radical groups on the right who, nothing positive could ever happen in Cuba. The only way we're going to do that is, Bay of Pigs too. There has to be a more mainstream, moderate approach, a bipartisan approach that's rooted in values, but also in the U.S. national interest and what we believe is interest of the Cuban people. And that's what we're trying to achieve on a day-to-day basis. It is not without controversy. It's not always well liked by the Cuban government. It's not liked by people on the left. It's not liked by people on the right. But I feel like if you're not ruffling feathers, if you're not getting anything done. Our job is not to be everybody's best friend. Our job is to do something that we think is in the best interest of everybody. Engage Cuba continues to grow and persevere. Obviously, the last year has been a more challenging one for U.S.-Cuba relations. There's been a series of issues between our governments, of which there's been a lot of tension, some controversy. But what's most important, I think, is that the people of the country's organizations continue to push forward. The support exists in Cuba and in the United States amongst the people for this continued engagement. While the governments may not be cooperating and working as well as maybe we would hope, our work becomes more important than ever because there's a void that needs to be filled by civil society, by members of the business community, of the private sector, and of Cuban American relations to keep the dialogue going. And if anyone tells you, I can't, there's all these terrible issues in Cuba that need to be addressed, you ask them, great, what is your solution? And that comes back down to, and they can tell you another excuse, another list of, abuses that they want to mention. Then you say, great, so what is your solution? What do you propose the United States do? And all you can get back to is the same thing we have been doing. Oh, we need more sanctions, more embargoes, stricter. Like, that's what we've just done for 60 years with no results. So I'm not interested in this to make people happy. I'm interested in getting something done that can be achieved for the betterment of everybody. And, sometimes that's going to be controversial. It's not lost on me that there's controversy in this, and I've worked on human rights my whole life. This has been, and so it's hard to be criticized by some, saying that you don't care about these issues. It's the reason I'm working on this is because I do care deeply. And I think the problem is that they do not understand or fail to recognize that they don't offer a solution, and it's fine to continue to raise anger, but I'm more interested in getting something done. Things take time, obviously, and so as a result of that, we're very optimistic, and I think we're seeing a lot of support, particularly building into these elections for the next Congress, to take some really meaningful steps to improve the relationship with Cuba.